Hey there, welcome to Gordon's Garage. This week we are working on an International that has been swapped to an S10 frame. And I'm not sure of the year. I'll have to find that out. I'm getting really bad about not knowing these years before I start. So this is the International here. It is, got the hood off of it. It's sitting on an S10 frame. I've got it sitting on ramps right now so I can get the lift under it. And it sits pretty low. Whole body's in good shape. Runs good. Got a small block Chevy in it. Interior really nice. 5-speed transmission. A wood bed in it. Just your typical small block Chevrolet. Power brakes. It's sitting really low. It's got the rear end's hitting a couple places. It's hitting the wheels are spaced out. It's got double spacers on it, which we're going to get rid of that. But hitting up in here. So I've got this marked to where we're going to cut that inner fender out. I'll probably go ahead and pull this board here out and that board over there. And there's a 2x4 under there that it's in our way. We got to cut out. But let's put it up in the air. We'll show you what all we got to deal with. And we didn't do this build, by the way. It's come in already built. So as I said, it's on a Leaf S10 chassis. We've got one leaf spring back here. Somebody removed all the leaves except for this one here, but basically turned it into a single leaf rear end, which in my opinion should have never been done. They did a notch kit in the frame. The welding of that leaves a little bit to be desired. So I might have to really go over that real good. Somebody even welded tips onto the shocks, extended the shocks. So look, the drive shaft here, the drive shaft has been hitting here and here. So I suspect that's what we're hearing under the truck. So we're going to take these blocks and cut them down to 1 inch. So it's not sitting so low. The inner of the wheel is hitting. You can see the rubber mark on the inner fender there that the wheel's hitting. But you can also see double spacers, 1, 2. So we want to get rid of this spacer. It's just dangerous. So that's going to bring the wheel in actually 1.5 inches or so. So we got to get rid of some of this garbage here. Same thing over here. This one actually had, it's got one big spacer and then a couple of little spacers. I mean, overall, it's a decent build. It's pretty clean. Guy wasn't a welder, for sure. Exhaust is a little goofy, but I guess it works. Let's get the hydraulic clutch here. We've got an oil leak, valve cover gasket leaking in the rear up there. We're going to fix that. Radiator hose is collapsed. I guess they don't have a vent or an overflow anywhere, causing that to collapse. Have to deal with that. He's got spacers on the front, which you just about have to on the front of these to get the wheel spacing right. It's hard to get away from doing that. So yeah, we've got our, and oh yeah, and these fenders are dragging the ground. So we're gonna go ahead and just cut them a little shorter. Every time I come across the driveway and turn, those fenders scrub the gravel. It's quite loud. Overall though, like I said, it's not a bad build. It's just some things that we would have done differently for sure. I mean, I don't like this either. These shackles are just about to hit the frame. I'm sure once the weight of the vehicle is down, I'm sure that the shackles are hitting the frame once the weight of the vehicle is on the springs. Well, I guess it is what it is. One thing that's so terrible about what they've done here, they put a spacer in, and then those shims in front of the spacer which shorten the studs. I mean, this thing is barely, you can see up in that lug nut, barely grabbing any stud, any threads. So that's a very dangerous situation. We're going to remedy that. Well, you can see now that I have the wheel off, see on the driver's side, they had this spacer, which is, what is that? It is a 3-inch spacer. And then they had this spacer too to add a little extra 1/2 inch. But what that did, see, is it left very little stud hanging out. See, the wheel's still got to go over that. And then it took away your hub there for the hub centric. And then on this side, now they had that side spaced out 3.5 inches. Look at this. Here they've got this one spaced out 4.5 inches, a whole inch wider on this side. So what is the deal there? Did we get our body? Did they mount our body or the body off? And I do not like how thin they notched that. Okay, let's just see. From the notch out, we've got 17.5 inches to that body lip. So did they mount their body, not get their body mounted centered on the frame? Man, what are we dealing with here? Over here we've got 18 inches. Well, from the frame out, we've got about a 1/2 inch difference. That could be old beat up fender differences. That could just be the difference in the 1/2 inch. I mean, you could have a fender dented in that far. Well, as you can see, I got a little carried away. There's not much holding this bed together at all. A few 2x4s. They had I mean, this is good. This is the way you'd usually do something here. Just weld a square tube in. But in my opinion, they should have built the whole thing out of square tubing instead of 2x4 stuff, because that's not going to last. Especially it's not pressure treated or anything. Just had this plywood laying in there. It wasn't even screwed down. And then these boards here cut around the fender wells were screwed down. And that's basically what was holding it in. I mean, I guess it'll get you by, but it just is not the way that we would build it. So I guess now I'm glad to get down to this point though. So now I can just cut that whole inner fender out, and this, I can pull this 2x4 out and I'll be able to see exactly where my tire is going to sit and build around the tire. And I can even set it down on the ramps. That's what we'll do. We will. All right, so we're coming along. We got the bottom of these fenders cut off. I got brace in here that we're gonna have to weld there. Some fender braces. Got both sides done. The back, we got the fenders cut out. Plenty of room. These 2x4s, if he chooses to go back with the same style bed that was in there, just use the same stuff, we'll just screw those 2x4s back in. We'll lay that plywood back on there, screw them down. You got a little over 4 feet between those wheels. That plywood's 4 feet. So it'll fit in there. Maybe we might notch it out to relieve it a little bit, just so there's never any chance of those tires scraping. Then we'll take this old wheel tub, cut it down to where it needs to be to cover those holes. But it's coming along well. Coming along well. Trying to remember exactly everything that needs to be done to this thing. I think the International, the master cylinder, it's not a problem with that. Okay, here it is, International. Front fender cut, rear lowering block cut, rear wheel tubs, and the wheel spacers. So we're already knocking out a chunk of that. Well, I don't want to mark that out yet because I got to still weld. Okay, so let's do this. We did do that. Now we need to weld fender braces front. Okay. We got the wheel spacers off of there. I haven't done that yet, or that, or that. So, coming along. And then everything else on that list still has to be done. We'll get to that later. Okay, so we found us a piece of square tube in here. We'll take that and we'll just set it right in there where I marked it, and we'll weld it. First I'll need to clean straighten the edges up so we can get a good weld on it. All right. Let's see if that'll just kind of have a little staying power. I'll have to set that up. All right, well, anyway, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna weld that right there. Maybe I can get you sitting on this fender, get you a little better view of that. I'll tell you what, I don't understand my tripod lately. I really don't. All right, we're gonna try to get us a weld on this thing. We've got our little Miller sidekick hooked up, and a little bit of ground going on here. Let's see. We can get something to stick with that little welder. Welding with such low voltage. Yeah, stupid. Got it up there now. We'll try to come across there with some kind of decent weld. Too awful bad after you get her warmed up a little bit. She don't do too bad, but you gotta get her warmed up. That'll do. So we got us a weld that works. Yeah, I mean that's not a bad weld at all. The corner don't look all that great, but it's enough to tie this side end to this side, get our 2x4s back across there, and we'll put some real good wood to metal screws in there this time, and then we'll just put our plywood back on there, zip her down, and put our wheel tubs in. We usually do deck boards when we build a bed, but this kind of different. We didn't build this truck. We're trying to tie up the loose ends on this truck. It looks to me like they started out real good on this build, but they kind of got tired as the build was going on probably, and just tired and lazy on it. And just didn't do some things very well. Okay, so we've got our steel tube welded in, our 2x4s mounted back. We use these wood to metal screws here. They're made to go through the wood, the bore through the wood, and then also they've got a little drill bit on the end to go through metal. And that's what we usually use when we put our beds in. Usually we would put about every couple feet a steel tube across so we can put nice deck boards in. But in this case, we're just trying to work with what was already on the vehicle and just, like I said, make it a little bit better. So we'll lay our plywood up on there now. Now this thing should lay right between those tires, but it may be. Did I not screw this one down? Oh, I sure didn't. Let me get that. Under that other board. I don't need that. I don't want that. There's what I want, right there. Now, you see how close that plywood is to that wheel now. We don't want that. So what I'll do is I'll take my tri-square and make a couple marks, and we'll pull that back out of there and cut it. We'll cut it. A lot of mumbling that goes on around here from me. A lot of thinking out loud. All right, so we'll just go to the other side and measure 28 and 53. 28 and 53. Do the same thing on the other side. Let it rest on that tub right there. Yeah, that's perfect. And we'll just cut. Perfect. Just do the same on the other side. So here's what I'm going to try. The fender, the inner fender that I took out of that, there's no reason, I don't think, why we shouldn't be able to reuse that. If I cut a straight line across here and then that'll sit on top of our wood, because we're raised up 1.5 inches plus 1/2 inch plywood, 3 inches, plus a 3/4 inch board on top of that. So we're almost 4 inches higher than we were when we cut this out. So that's, well, I'm gonna try to use that. We'll see how it goes. Okay, I was able to cut across there a straight line with the cutting wheel. So let's go see how it looks. No, not quite. I mean, we could probably keep working with it and make it fit. I mean, it is close. To lean in like that, I'd have to cut that at an angle to get it to fall down on there right. And I still not sure if it would look right once it was done. This a big old gap over here. Probably never get that to close. Yeah, I just don't guess that's gonna work. Well, we tried. I'll take this piece here and just set it. Could I take it and swell it? Set it that there. I mean, honestly, if I could get from this point to that point over there to swell out, but how could I do that? Set it out like that. I mean, I could put it there and add a strip of metal to the top. Let me play around. I'm gonna play around with it just a little bit. All right, so this is working out. I just got so busy on it, I didn't film, sorry. But basically I cut a pair, I cut that to fit. The old fender that I cut out, I cut it back in there to fit and tack welded it around. It is fitting really nice on each side. I'm coming up through there right now, tack welding it. And I did tear that fender apart, but we'll use that sheet metal down the road. So I think it looks good. Blends right in. Anytime that you can use old material and save, it's a plus. All right, we're back over here on this International this morning. Our 110 series. And let's see, I think we got all the suspension and bed and everything in order now. We've got a valve cover leak over here. I'm gonna pull the valve cover off and put a new gasket on there, and then we've got some lights, parking lights up front we need to install. We got some bigger ones. I don't know what I'm gonna have to do right here. I'm gonna have to maybe do some fill in on all that big rust hole to get that light in there, but overall, going well. I've got the valve cover off, and basically whoever was in here last, they put one of these rubber valve cover gaskets on there, and they never seal. The center bolt valve covers from the later model small blocks will seal, but you try to put a rubber valve cover gasket on the old style, and they won't seal. Never do. You got to use cork. It's the only thing that you can get to seal. That's my experience anyhow. Now we've got some milkiness in that valve cover there. I'm hoping that's just condensation. Also, as you can see, there's still old cork gasket on there. So someone did a very poor job in cleaning the valve cover, and that's definitely not going to seal when you got a rubber gasket coming right over that cork. So what I'm trying to do here is just get some material back here to screw that light to. I mean, there's not much left. to this, but this just kind of part of the history of the truck. Sounds kind of stupid to say that, but it's just what's trendy right now. It's what people want. They want that old rusty look. So if I can just get some material back here and keep it kind of hidden to where it don't take away from that look, but it gives something secure for the lights to mount to and function properly and safely, then that's what I'm after here in this case. So I was able to weld that. Was able to get a self-tapper up here and get it welded down there on this core support, which is still pretty solid. I just took an old piece of metal that we had left over from this build or another build, I don't remember, but again, I'm using materials that I didn't have to buy. So we'll do the same thing over here. We'll try to get a self-tapper in the corner up here. This may be solid enough to even get a little spot weld on it. And then I'll when I cut my little piece here, I'll leave this flange on the bottom so it bends over. We can get a weld on it. Okay, so you can see I've got 2 sections welded in there from top to bottom, and that'll stiffen things up. And basically it just gives me a place to screw this light to. You see, that's all we're after. And I know a lot of you, well, probably a lot of you do like the patina or the rust and all that stuff, or you wouldn't be on my channel. So we'll feed this through there. I need to be using my tripod instead of trying to do all this and hold my camera. See, we'll get all those wires in there. I'll just set that in there like that. And what I'll do is get that lined up, and I'm just going to take a couple of self-tappers, screw that right in. I think that's just perfect. Get her wired up. And nobody ever know the difference, will they? Now we got to come over here and get this old unit out. Somebody's really caked that one up with Bondo and stuff. It's going to be tough. But we'll make it happen. We will. So I did get the old light out of this side, and it was just about as bad as the other side. I went ahead and got a couple of pieces welded in here that I can self-tap my lens to. I'll let that cool down just for a minute, and we'll get our light in there, and then we should be just about done with this truck, except I still have to put my valve cover gasket on it. Well, I've got the valve cover off and cleaned up. The valve cover on there, or the gasket on there with some weather strip. And I'm letting that sit so it won't slip off when I mount it back to the engine. All right, so here we have both of the parking lenses lit up. I do think that looks exceptional. Okay, so we've got this girl sitting on the ground. She is low. We're going to give her a little drive and see what scrapes and scrubs. We really did a lot of work to this truck. I think those fenders turned out very good. I think I like that on this truck better than like big wheel tubs, because I mean that's factory metal. All right, let's see if this thing will crank. It hadn't run in several days. Now this is a straight drive car, so it's gonna probably be a little difficult for me to film and drive at the same time, but we're going to try to. All right, get over there in reverse. It's going to be one of those hot rides. Sweating my butt off. It's all right. This thing should ride pretty good. It's got the factory S10 suspension under it. I did not see that the springs were cut or anything. Little grindage going into second gear. I may not have had the clutch pushed far enough. I want to go too awfully fast. I haven't driven this truck yet. First bump felt pretty good. Steers good. Third gear moves pretty good. It doesn't seem like it's overly geared. I'm sure that's just a factory S10 rear end that probably matches that transmission. Fourth gear, she's all right. Fifth gear, holding tight. That was second gear. Probably that was a little too low. Yeah, she feels good. She's not too awfully rattly. I mean, she's going to be somewhat rattly, just because it's a 19 whatever international pickup truck. I never did get the year of this thing. I mean, I'm thinking it's late 40s, early 50s. Trying not to get off the road too far up here. I got a truck stuck up here one day, a few years back. Got too far off in the grass and got stuck. Had to walk all the way back to the shop and get the rollback. Shaft, the springs are twisting. what's going on with the, when I get onto it real good, the spring, those single springs are twisting and causing the drive shaft to hit the floor. That's what's going on. Need some traction bars or better leaf springs. Overall though, not too bad. Yes, overall, very nice, solid truck. Except for, I wish they wouldn't have taken those leaf springs out and reduced that down to a single spring. I'm up under the International, and yesterday when I test drove it, everything went really good except when you really shower down on it, the rear end lifts in the front, and that's normal because of torque. That's what it wants to do. But since we've got one leaf, it's flexing a little bit too far, and that drive shaft is hitting the frame up there. So we got to figure out a way to keep that from flexing. And I think what I'm going to do is I've got some steel plate. I want to make a couple of plates that I can sandwich this bar down in the front and the back to keep it from, to just basically add another leaf to that to keep it from flexing. I mean, sandwiching those together and holding them together might take enough of the flex out under acceleration to keep that drive shaft from hitting. So I don't want to spend a lot of time building that. We've got these plates here that we use for, you know, that are used for shackles and stuff, but so there's what I'm thinking. Is I've got enough of these, I can cut them in half and bolt that down. Bolt one on the top and one on the bottom just to sandwich that, keep that from, keep this thicker plate fastened to this thinner one. I'm thinking that will help to take the flex out. We'll see. So I cut one of those plates in half, and it worked out perfect just to sandwich these together. Got a lock washer on it. I've got them pretty tight. I mean, they may slide over time, but just for now, I want to see if that is going to help to solve our problem. Okay, so on the International, man, I got stuff laying everywhere. What did I do with? Anyway, on the rear end, I tightened up the leaf springs, and that did take care of most of that problem. But it's still, when you just really get on it and dog down on it, that drive shaft is hitting. So I'm taking the blocks out of the rear. There's a 2-inch aluminum block. I mean, there's a wedge that was in it, but there's a 2-inch aluminum block, lowering block that was in there. And I don't know what I did with it. I'm not seeing it now. But anyway, so just say that's your 2-inch lowering block. The leaf spring perch. No. The lowering block itself, if I had that, what the freaking heck did I do with it? There it is on the ground, just kicked it. Okay, so, you see the lowering block, it's got a nipple on the top, and that is where a lineup pin, that's where the differential sits, on that lineup pin. So the differential was on the lineup pin, but the lineup pin on the leaf spring was in this hole on both sides. So they've just clamped it down to get their wheelbase correct, probably, but really had no lineup pin. I mean, this thing could slide back and forth that far. So just real sloppy, real sloppy. So what I'm doing right now is I'm making some lineup plates, some relocation plates. So there'll be a hole here for the leaf spring pin, and then I'll weld a stud up here, a lineup pin up here for the rear end to just have to offset it. That should have been done when they built this, but I guess they, you know how it is. You just get done and you're ready to be done, and you just slam some stuff together, and it's not safe. You shouldn't do that, but we all know how it is. All right, so there's the second relocation plate. We've just got a lineup pin welded in there and a hole 1.5 inches away. So that just relocates the axle 1.5 inches to the rear. What they should have done to start with. Okay, so we do have the 2-inch blocks removed, and also we clamped the 2 leaf springs together. We're going to go drive it and see if that is going to keep the drive shaft from torquing up and hitting the frame. So let us see what happens once I lock those clamp those 2 leaves together. That helped a lot, but it still was torquing up and hitting the frame. So went ahead and took the 2-inch blocks out of the 2-inch lowering blocks out. I mean, you've seen that, and I had to make some relocator plates. But the rear diff is 2 inches farther away from the frame now, so hopefully that's going to keep this thing from scrubbing like it was. It's going to still torque and twist back there somewhat, but without a proper set of ladder bars or traction bars or something, there's not much I can do about it. Since they took all those leaves out back there, it's just not a good setup. That's kind of the chance you take when you buy something that somebody else built. You don't never know what you're going to run into. Let's see. Oh yeah. It's definitely not hitting now. Not hitting now. I torqued it up pretty good. This is a running little truck. a running little truck. Well, that little straight drive makes it more torquey. It's because you can wind those gears out like that. It's really not that fast, but it'll get you in trouble. We got the problem fixed though. This little short driveway, I can't even get it out of third gear. Third gear is about as high as fast as I can go. But I believe that has solved our problem. Well, as always, thank you for watching Gordon's Garage. We'll try to keep putting some content out there.